Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest needs no introduction. Phil Sharkey, President and CEO of the Higher Authority. How are you, Phil?
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's great to see you again and have another interview here to go over. And I think I have what I consider a very interesting subject today. We've talked so much about background checks and our process. I'm not sure we always explain everything that goes into a background, Jonathan. So I'd like to show you or go over with you sort of the six components that we have in our main background check, and have you stop me at any time as soon as you have questions and sort of go over so people know, people who have a background check conducted on them, as well as potential clients and my current clients, exactly what goes into a background check.
That's fabulous. I think most people, when they hear background, think it's a relatively simple, straightforward Google search. But that's not what the Higher Authority does at all. So, uh,
Absolutely. If so, we wouldn't be needed. And I think when you see everything that goes into it, you'll probably understand why we see 33% this year, Jonathan. Usually it used to be 20, used to be 30% were fraudulent. We're up to, in 2024, 33% of the people we screen turn out to be fraudulent. So one out of three. And again, I always point out to people, this is not random. These are people that signed a release and authorization. These are people that know a background check is going to be conducted on them. And we still have 33% turn out to be fraudulent.
that's incredible. That's an incredible statistic in and of itself. A whole other topic. But why don't you jump into number one and let us know what the first step is?
Sounds good, Jonathan. Again, like you said, maybe we can talk about that sometime because myself, as soon as I'm going to sign a release, I know you're going to check. I might go like, well, there's something I have to talk about, but a topic for another day for sure. So, of the background checks that we conduct, we call this the full level one. There's also a level two, which includes even more. And then for clients who want to spend less money, we have a partial background, which include just something like a criminal check or an educational check. But here's a full background. The first thing, Jonathan, very important. It's called a verification of identity, a social security number trace, an address history. Some people in my industry call it a skip trace report. We take the social of the applicant, always need the social and the date of birth, which is on our release form, and we run that social through different bureaus to make sure it's a valid social security number. So many people today, and not to be on a political fence regarding undocumented citizens, immigrants, such, there's just a huge number, Jonathan. So the first thing we want to confirm for our clients is that the social is valid. You can pay them without an issue. Some of the numbers I researched for you, in even going to the current political standing, but in 2022, there was 11 million of the country's population was undocumented citizens. So that's 3.3% of our country's population, a gigantic number.
Wow.
In 2023, it rose to 11.7 million. And in 2024, it's an estimate, but they estimate about 13.7 million people are undocumented.
Incredible. Bill, not to go too far down a rabbit's hole onto this one, because I know you've got five other important things to tell us about, but I've historically we've often heard the Social Security number, maybe the phrase is doesn't lie, it's always attached. Now you start hearing things about Social Security numbers not being secure anymore. Is it possible that people are using Social Security numbers, that are, stealing
So
other
true.
people's Social Security numbers, all those types of things that are going on? And
So true. So the system is overloaded, Jonathan. 5 years ago, I could give you an exact answer. Now, many times we have things that they call enumeration at entry. They give out temporary social to people that may have been allowed into the country in a current status. So that just mucks it up even further. We have socials that are, I'll find was issued in a death benefit claim in Nebraska 10 years ago. So people in that case is using a fraudulent social.
Mhm.
There's such a problem. The problem is so overwhelming that our country really doesn't have a handle on it, as we know from the political arguments. And I always tell employers, when there's a problem, what you want to find is you just want to pay the person. You're not, your responsibility to call immigration and be a deputy. All you're trying to do is see if there's a problem, you go back to the person and say, I need a social security card. The social is coming up as fraudulent or unverifiable in today's world, and there's a problem here. It's a big issue for
And,
us.
and an interesting twist, I guess. You and I and those people who are trying to work lawfully, etc. perhaps are thinking about, well, if we're using our own socials and it's paying into a social security system that hopefully at some point is going to pay us benefits, I guess if you're perhaps a fraudster, you're not worried about retirement in the future. You're thinking about how to scam the system today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it hurts again the people who do fly right and do things correctly, as you mentioned. And it really comes to the point where you just can't confirm their identity. So how in turn can you pay them, legally? And you don't want to be part of person parcel to the problem as well. So simple search at least can identify when people are valid. And also as an investigator, what I really like is I get address history when we do the criminal checks, which we'll talk about shortly. Most times I find it's not always where they are, it's where they used to be. So people will hide that from you. I've had clients go, well, I'll just ask them where they used to be. I'm like, that's not the point. Dangerous people aren't going to tell you that, yeah, Jonathan, I used to live in Connecticut, and that's where everything is. When we do this quick report, we get their full address history without their help, and that helps me to determine where should we be doing the criminal checks, because 7 years is what you want to do. And if they've only been in Massachusetts for a year, you probably want to check those 6 years in Connecticut or wherever they were. So a very important search. It's my starting place.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What's number two?
Number two is educational verifications. It's right there. It's plain. Don't have to spend much time on this one. A lot of fraudulent claims are in this field. A lot of my stories about famous people that we've shared are false educational claims. So we'll verify if they claim a PhD, a master's, a bachelor's, an associate's, a high school diploma. What people don't understand, it's not the level to me, it's the honesty. It's like, hey, Jonathan, nice to meet you. I'm lying to you. So if you don't have that high school diploma, then don't say you do. It's the lie more than the level for a lot of my clients. It's a bad
Yeah,
starting place.
no, understood. But I can imagine the level too. You certainly don't want people without the credentials doing certain types of work.
Absolutely. It speaks to and again, it also shows their level. They're not as high as you thought. Their sneakiness, they're going to lie to you. They're going to claim things. And again, just like the other example with the social, for the hard people that did work and put the 4 years in or the 8 years and got their degree, it diminishes their work when someone else is just going to go a year and lie about it and get the same possible position as you. Not fair.
Absolutely. Number three.
Employment verifications. We do a 5 or 10 year history. Very important. This is where people also falsify a lot. References are key for us now. In the last few years, since COVID, it's gotten very difficult to reach companies. HR offices are working remote or partial. They're no longer available. They don't want their numbers or contact info out there, as we see with some terrible examples of what happened when you're out there too much. People can identify you and harm you. So it's very hard to reach these companies to get the HR. So we try to ask for references, and those references, I want to see someone who was your supervisor or manager. If you can't do that, then someone who was at least a coworker or someone under you. If you can't do that, at least someone who can place you at that company that can comment to your whereabouts and knew you were there. Give me something to help verify you. Help me help you is what we tell the clients, the applicants.
Give me those 10 seconds of video of me wanding in and getting in the door.
Absolutely. Give me something. I need to place you there.
Absolutely. Number four, Phil.
Driving records. We do that on every full background, Jonathan. People go to me, why? Who cares? It's not a driving position, Phil. I don't care. Well, I respond with, because 10% that we do each month come back either without a license or with a horrific driving record history. So we constantly get people like, well, it's no big deal. I'm like, are they driving in? He's like, I can see them pulling in now for the interview. And I'm like, well, they haven't had a license in 18 months. So they're breaking the law right there in front of you. And it shows a lot about their character, their ability to handle issues that the rest of us must handle. And we also get the whole country, Jonathan. So when I'm looking for criminal, I may never know you were in Florida, but I pull your driving record and I see 3 years ago you had a DWI down in Fort Lauderdale. Very good information to know. Could be very pertinent to making a good hiring decision.
Excellent. Number five.
5, and then I'll go right into 6 if you like. 5 is sex offender. We do local and national, pretty self-explanatory. You'd like to know if a person's on the sex offender registry. It could impact your hiring decision, could impact how dangerous they are. And then, of course, number 6 is criminal history, probably the most important part of a background check, the most requested area I get. It can be, usually it's a county check because those are readily available and they're quick. It could be a statewide if the state allows. 5 or 6 states do not allow you to do statewide checks for employment verification, for hiring, for background checks. Massachusetts, people know the Corey term is the statewide, has to be special regulations, a special release. So most times it's a county check. Those are still good searches because we'll check every darn county the person has resided in. And again, my backgrounds are done in 2 to 3 business days, so they fit that schedule. That, my friend, is a full background check. And from that, we do see the 33% turn out to be fraudulent, and somewhere in that category go off the rails.
That's incredible, Phil. I mean, the magnitude of 33%, as we talked about, is a subject that we'll park for now and a subject of a different story. But, to our listeners, what you're talking about is essentially putting a full 360-degree view, almost a puzzle together of and a patchwork or of that person's background and verification. And to your point, I think really important is what sort of narrative, does it align with the narrative that the person's telling you? So at the
So
end of the
true.
day, as you've said many times, people have hiccups, people have made mistakes, people have done things in their past that they have somehow regretted, or, we as our brains evolve and we develop, you sort of have that pause and say, is this the best thing that I should be doing? And when you're younger, maybe those things aren't as refined and developed. But it's really about having people, telling the truth, walking in the door, because if they're not telling the truth on the way in, the likelihood that they're going to be telling the truth while they're, counting your cash or taking your inventory or what have you, is not likely.
Exactly, Jonathan. Again, it's not like we're Big Brother, and I get a lot of that coming down on people trying to find something on everyone. No, it's about you as a possible employer getting the most information available to you, which gives you the best decision available. Many times they'll come back from the background and say, go back to the person, see if they can explain things to you, see if they can make you comfortable with that, go back and forth. And if you are, fine. If not, if you have pause, I would talk about intuition usually is pretty strong. If there's situations that occur, there's usually a reason for it. And like you said, it sets the precedent. We always say in my industry, a leopard doesn't change their spots. And if they're lying coming in on day one, they'll tend to be lying right on through. And that's messing with your business, your branding, and your customers.
Excellent. Always comprehensive, Phil. I hope as people listen to this segment, they want to pick up the phone, they want to reach out to you, they want to engage you and say, I need this guy to give me the full picture on what's going on. Phil, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, we're here for Jonathan for clients coast to coast. It doesn't have to be Massachusetts, but you can reach us toll free at 888-230-5901. On the web, it's hireoff, hireauth.com, www. And you can get right through to a person and we'll get right back to you. And it goes quick. We don't have a long sign up process. You call today, you can be sending background checks tomorrow.
Excellent. Phil Sharkey, president and owner of the Hire Authority. It's always a pleasure to have you and hear your wisdom on Radio Entrepreneurs.